illegal drugs. Public consumption of illegal drugs remains illegal either way. Perhaps there was a misconception on that point. But if we are to be honest, the outcry and frustration coming out of last week's vote is not really about who is responsible for prosecution in those cases. It's about the conditions on our street. It's about the health crisis playing out right in front of our eyes and the people suffering and dying from a new kind of poison, and how those elements combined altogether make our neighbors feel unsafe and unwelcome. That's our greatest fear, to feel unsafe, to believe our lives are at risk. And worse, to believe that our city government, all four corners, the executive, the city council, the municipal court judges, and the city attorney's office, the four corners of our structure, what is worse is to believe that we are incapable or unwilling to address it. I beg to differ. Let's look at what happened. This year in Olympia, the Senate introduced Senate Bill 5536 to fix the Blake decision. But on April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, final legislation could not be reached. Our team, brilliantly led by a former elected official, Gail Tarleton, and her team under Senior Deputy Mayor Bruce Harrell, actively worked on this issue because they knew our directive. Our directive was not to have a piecemeal approach on this critical issue. This is bad policy for the city of Seattle and bad policy for the state. We've talked loudly and articulately about a piecemeal approach and why that could be devastating for so many people. After the session ended on April 23rd, we went in a full-blown lobbying mode, and 9 days later, Governor Inslee called a special session that would be called to fix the Blake decision. And within those 9 days, City Attorney Ann Davidson and Council members Sarah Nelson and Alex Peterson held a press conference to introduce a local fix to the Blake decision, recognizing that Olympia had not passed legislation to protect Seattle. They resubmitted the legislation after the state addressed Blake. Now, for those who've been around for a little while, they know that every year, that's what the city attorney does. They look at what happened in Olympia at the legislative session. They submit legislation to reconcile state and local laws. There's nothing unusual about that process. In fact, that's their duty. But what happened on June 6th, just forget about the vote for 1 minute, was that people from all walks of life poured their heart out in testimony. This is a resurrection on the war against drugs. This will have a deadly consequence for people struggling with addiction and will once again disproportionately affect black and brown communities. Others would disagree. They say this is a tool to get people help. The war on drugs is fear-mongering. The average time for a misdemeanor is 3 days in local jail. This is an adoption of state law and one tool to get people in treatment. The fear now is that the city council had made a decision that is misaligned with state law and misaligned with the vast majority of people, what the vast majority of people want in this city, the majority of which elected me as their mayor. And then that begs the question as to what my administration has been doing during the last several weeks during this debate. Well, let me tell you what we've been doing, and I'll turn around and look at anyone in the eye. We've been putting in the hard work. SPD has recovered over 1 million pills of fentanyl in just the first 3 months of this year. That's enough. Those are enough pills to kill everyone here in Seattle. In the first 4 months of this year, reported major violent crimes is down 19.8% compared to the same period in 2022. Let me be more specific than that, from 1,837 incidents to 1,473. Notably, robberies are down 30% and aggravated assaults are down 17%. Shots fired. Shots fired events are down 18.1%. Year to date, Right now, SPD has recovered over 491 guns, the second highest total on record, on top of the nearly 1,350 guns that they retrieved last year. In the last quarterly update to the One Seattle Homelessness Action Plan website, shootings at encampments with a homelessness nexus, which we know we identified as a problem, are down approximately 80% from the 2022 second quarter peak. Let me be more specific, from 71 to 13. Reported major property crime has decreased 23.1% in the first 4 months of the year compared to the same period in 2022. Again, let me be specific, 15,710 incidents down to 12,086. All reported other crimes, including misdemeanor assault, drug, liquor, trespass, firearms, and all other crimes not included in major crimes, declined 6.8% in the first 4 months of the year compared to 2022. Again, from 8,058 to 7,507. Overall, all reported crime declined 17.7% in the first 4 months compared to the same period in 2022. This is the lowest number of reported crimes in the previous 4 years. SPD, we recognized that in previous years, our sexual assault unit were providing less than optimal results. We increased, doubled from 4 to 8 the number of detectives in this arena pursuant to my executive order, and those recommendations came from advocates and subject matter experts who are part of the advisory panel on sexual assault and system reform. We've been putting in the work. I talked about homelessness in the realm of public safety because sometimes these issues get intermingled. And I'll be the first to say that not all homelessness situation presents an issue of crime, presents an issue of a need for shelter. But if you look at the verified tent counts in public spaces, they've decreased by 42%. RVs at encampment sites have decreased by 29%, and last year we made more than 1,800 referrals. Response times to priority 1 calls, 911 calls, are just above the 7 minutes, which is the goal we set to desired time for our department. And in all this work, the use of force is down in most instances by less than 1%. That's effective constitutional policing. But let me tell you where else we've been. We've been holding the hand of Devon Pickett's mother and wife, weeping at his funeral service. As a beautiful young man, murdered as a result of mental illness and despair, promising his family that we would keep everyone safe. I don't think the press was there. We spent hours at the funeral service with the Black activist community attending Elijah Lewis's service, where he died protecting the life of his 9-year-old nephew. I don't think the press was there on that one, to listen to his 9-year-old nephew who was shot in the leg simply say to us, "My uncle died because he protected me from the bad man." We've been working with groups like Community Passageways, going deep into our community with people who experience trauma to save their lives and allow them to be protective members of society. We've been launching Reach Out at Ingram High School, where 17-year-old Ebenezer Hale was killed. We've been working with Dr. Paul Ramsey, Dr. Leslie Walker Harding, Dr. Janine Jones, journalist Gene Anderson, among others, including my First Lady, Joanne Harrell, reducing violence tendencies and trauma untreated, realizing that that is the upstream work that we have to do. Where have we been? You see, I get emotional. Better loosen up this tie. We've been putting in the hard work to save this city. But let me make something else clear on this war on drugs. The voice of the unheard. I'm standing here with Brother Darrell Powell and Jimmy Buchanan and Bishop Witherspoon, because for some of you, some people, the war on drugs was an asterisk in the history book, something you read about. We lived through it. We've cried through it. All right, now it's good. Need some water. Got my game face back on you. Watch out for me. Do you think for a moment I will lead this city without compassion? Without treating people who have drug addiction? These brothers know me since I was 8 years old, 9 years old. His father and his uncle were my baseball coach. We survived the war on drugs. This brother went to Harvard, got his MBA. He's a bishop of a national church. He's a successful entrepreneur and consultant. We survived the war on drugs. So when people talk about this could be a war on drugs, don't dismiss what they are saying. Because your voice may not always be at the center of policy, because our voices were not at the center of that policy. Our voices were not at the center of that policy, and I need this entire city to recognize and not be dismissive when people live with trauma because of what happened in this country. One Seattle means that we listen to the underdog once in a while. We don't dismiss anyone. I am standing with leaders behind me committed to doing this kind of work. So let's talk about what we're going to do. This work group, we will pass a law that allows our department to make arrests. I'm unambiguous on that. But we will do that with compassion to protect people when we have to. But our values will always be to lead with compassion, with help, with love, always. It's weird with me holding this bottle in my hand like it's a mantle. This ordinance will take it on a granular level as to what our fine officers will do when they encounter someone using drugs. They will evaluate whether the user is a threat to themselves only, a threat to others. And let me say this very clearly. People should not be demonized because they want to walk down the streets and be safe. They want to shop. They want to stand at a bus stop and not be around open-air drug dealing. They should not be demonized. Our officers want clarity on what they should do. So let me be clear. They will have that clarity in the work that we're going to do in the next coming weeks. This system design group will work with the passion that I have. That's my job. The municipal court, the city attorney, will be hard at work designing what a new community court looks like. I want to talk about our police department in closing. Be proud of them. I will say that. Because when I talked about the work we're doing, and I'll go back into the precincts and talk to these officers, and I'll look them in the eye and say, I will uphold you when you look at our community and you see your face in our community. When you see people struggling out here with addiction issues, I don't want you to see a bad human being. I want you to see someone that needs help. And if you are protecting someone and you have to make arrest, we will have your back because you will do it lawfully and constitutionally. When we talk about unity in our community, I want to talk about One Seattle, unity in our community. That's what we've dedicated our lives to. You know, they're sitting through this speech. They've probably heard me give 1,000 speeches. They know I wake up, I got what's called 4 o'clock in the morning courage. We do this work. We dedicate ourselves to this work. And when our community implodes, when our community has problems within our own community, we don't say we don't believe in our community. They're right, presiding judge.
That's correct.
We continue to believe in our community. So after what happened last week, we don't abdicate our responsibilities to build One Seattle. It's not a period of fragmentation, it's a period of resilience. One Seattle is a North Star. Yesterday, Sue Bird, we retired Sue Bird's retirement jersey, and Coach Jenny Buchek said something that was really profound. She talked about different leadership styles. And she says some people could lead like a shepherd. You could lead from behind, in the middle, but you always know, the flock always know there's going to be green pastures. Unlike a cowboy sit there and put that lasso out and pull someone back in line and show that calf who's boss. No, we're going to be shepherds together. I believe we won't fail because I know the talent we have behind us. I know our North Star. Our executive order that will accompany this ordinance is going to actually count how many people are out here on the streets using drugs. We are data-based in our approach. Right now, we are trying to get from the Bloomberg Foundation, a gold rating on how we use data. I open up data. I said in our administration, we'll lead with data. We'll open it up for you to see. Right now, how many people are out there using it? And at the end of the year, you will see how many people we arrested, how many people we diverted, how many people we treated. You'll get as much demographic information you can because I believe in the goodness of the people around me. No time for grandstandings, no time for punching down at anyone. But the city council took a hit. Last week, I took a hit. And if I took a hit, my community takes a hit. In a One Seattle approach, I don't start punching down at people for what happened last week. It's not what we're going to do. So now I'm going to lighten it up and say to all of you that this is where we shine. We don't hide. We don't punch at each other. We get through it and we become resilient. We're going to get this ordinance across the finish line. We're going to get this ordinance against the finish line. We're going to give our officers the clarity they need. We're going to align ourselves with what the city wants, which is a safe Seattle, a healthy Seattle. And with that, I'll part by saying One Seattle. Thank you very much. And now we'll take some questions, I believe. I did want to make one statement. Oh, I saw my wife's hand go up. I don't know what this is going to be. I saw my wife's hand go up. But yesterday I said this, and I bounced this. Everywhere you go in the city right now, people are saying this. I like where we're heading. I like what I'm seeing. I want to see, are you all getting that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
I like the trajectory that the city's, we've gone through some tough times, Seattle, but they're feeling like there's hope, and they're seeing it, and I produce data to show what they're feeling. We're going to open it up for questions, but I saw the most important hand go up, and that is my wife, Joanne Harrell. So I'm going to, First Lady Joanne Harrell, you have the, this scares me, you have to come up right here, you have to.
Yes, it is true, I'm the First Lady, but I'm also a resident of Seattle. And I want to take a minute, and I want to thank not only my husband, our mayor, but everybody who's standing here. To me, this is leadership, and I'm the leadership chair for the Foster Business School, the Frisky chair, so I know what leadership is. This is leadership. This is commitment, this is compassion, and this is love, and this is Seattle, and I am so proud to be a part of this team. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jimmy, you may want to help me navigate through the questions. I see a hand, please.
You said, quote, "We will pass a law that allows our department to make arrests." To be clear, the
Correct.
And then previously, you had encouraged the police department to focus on high-level distributors. Is there any specific edict that you've given to not make arrests on misdemeanor drug charges?
No, there's not an edict I've said not to make arrests on drug charges. Chris?
Will this be done by July 1st, and what is the risk to the city if it's not?
Good question. I don't know. I'm using the term coming weeks because ultimately it rests with the city council. I have in my mind what a great ordinance could look like, the parameters accompanied with an executive order, but I was told don't use a specific date. But to be a little more direct, I know they do go on break by it's the last week of August. And so we hope to get it accomplished before then, but I'm not going to commit the city council. That might be a more appropriate question for them. I'll tell you what, this work group will start working immediately on what this ordinance and executive order looks like. Yes?
Andy Anderson, Coca-Cola. So the key vote in this that is here, Councilmember Lewis, he's indicated that he wants some sort of therapeutic court to replace community courts. Do you have a plan to do that? Work with him? What's in the works for that?
Yeah, very good. And I can't remember, we had like a pregame huddle before this. I can't remember if I said during my remarks or now, but let me make it very clear. I'm going to lead on, we have two very outstanding municipal court judges here. We have Ann Davidson from the city attorney's office here. I know that they are committed to figuring that out. We also know that the city council and my office, we look at the budget and resources allocated, so we are there for what I will call ancillary support. I'll call it ancillary support because that's a relationship between the prosecutors and the defense bar and the court system that should be worked out. So I'm confident, and by all means, if any of you want to speak on this issue, you can. I'm confident they will come up with a substitution for community court. And let me say something else about it. I'll give my opinion on that. If you eliminate something that people put a lot of work in, you have to be quicker, or you have to quickly figure out what's the substitution. I know they're already having these conversations. We had a meeting this morning with the city attorney Ann Davidson and her team, and the prosecuting attorney Lisa Mannion and her team, and the Dow Constantine and his team, and we all met this morning to talk about these issues. So I'm confident that a alternative path based on treatment, based on diversion, will evolve. That will likely not be in the ordinance because that's a different issue outside the scope of an ordinance. Please.
You said you have in your mind what the perfect ordinance would look like. Can you expound on that a little?
Sure. Let me also make it clear before I expand, this is the executive's idea. What I hope you heard is we center the voice of the community because they have not been centered. That's the treatment community. That's the most impacted community. That did not occur. So this is what my ordinance wants to look like. Clarity for the officers. If you see a person that is threatening someone, perhaps they could have warrants out for their arrest. They could be a violent person. We don't know. And there could be drug use around the downtown core. And remember, I was the first proponent of body cameras. So when my officers arrest, you will see what they do. Okay? So if there's a lawful constitutional arrest made because this person poses a threat, it will be made. On the other hand, there are people out there that are dying because they're sick and unhealthy. They've been traumatized. They're living with a trauma. And I'm here with my childhood friends because that could have been us. We can walk these streets and we will see people we grew up with. They're killing themselves. That's a treatment-based model. So in our other models, and Mr. Davis here does a lot of work in this realm. He deals with people experiencing trauma. So our ordinance will talk about how we deal, what we're required to do for that person who just needs help. It's not a war on drugs, it's a war on health. We want everyone to be healthy. Yes?
You said that at max one people have been arrested on a misdemeanor charge is going to be in for 3 days, but it takes 7 days in jail for you to be on medically
We're putting people in jail because they are a threat or harm to others is why we put people in jail. They are putting people's safety at risk. That is what the law is there for. That's why we arrest.
What about their safety?
The safe, there being what? The person that,
On the street, people.
what about their safety? Okay, so I don't know if I'm making myself clear. Let me see if this microphone is working. What I've repeatedly said is, in our model and in our ordinance, the safety of everyone matters. Their health matters. So we will have other skill sets dealing with a person that is not safe because of their drug use, their illegal use. Again, our officers will be given this kind of clarity in how they approach these issues, because I think that's what was missing in the discussion. And remember, the Blake decision started several years ago. 2021 is when this issue started. It took the legislature a couple years to figure this out. Did you think that the city council could figure this out in a week? We center the voices of many people, those who want to feel safe and be downtown and then have a good quality of life, and those that are sick. I think I've made that clear, but I'll keep saying it until it is clear. Yes?
It seems like a big part of what's missing is more available treatment options. Can you speak at all to what you might be doing or considering to improve the treatment options?
One of the first things that the city has historically struggled with, and even now, is where do you take a person other than to jail for treatment? The Crisis Care Center that passed north of $1 billion over 9 years will establish those. So what we're going to do in the next month or so, next coming weeks, we're going to look for an answer to that question. Where can we take people to get treatment? We're doing an asset review to see where, in the meantime, before these different facilities are sited, where we can take them. And that is a treatment-based approach. And we also realized that Chief Diaz talked about this morning about our crisis response unit, where we're taking people, and we know that the problem sometimes taking people to hospitals, they're not fully staffed to take in some of these people that need help. So the siting is some of the work we're going to be talking about in the next several weeks. Where do we take that person for the kind of treatment they need?
So are you saying essentially that if someone is just using drugs on the street or in possession of drugs, the police are not going to be taking them to jail as long as they're not threatened physically?
So let me be clear. We're getting ready to do the work. You're asking for specific specificity on the ordinance we're going to pass. I was very intentional on my terms. I said we will reconcile state law versus city law, yes. And then we'll come up with an ordinance that allows us to make lawful arrests, yes. We'll come up with a strategy to give our officers clarity in how they'll make sure people that need treatment get treatment, yes. And we're going to do this collectively together with the city council, with the court system, with the city attorney's office.
What happens in the meantime in that situation? Someone's arrested but not, or someone's using drugs but not necessarily posing a threat to
So,
someone else.
so your question is in the meantime, which is in the next couple of weeks. You want me to describe what happens in the next couple of weeks?
Sure, yeah,
Di-
like clarifying what your
Yeah.
directive is to SPD.
So my directive to SPD will be basically what they've been doing. They've been doing a pretty good job on open air drug use. I think that's what you're specifically talking about. Right now, the King County prosecutor made it clear they don't have the resources to prosecute. The law does not allow, since 2012, does not allow the city attorney's office the ability to prosecute. That is why we have the urgency of the hour that we're working on right now. So in the next couple of weeks, it will be status quo for the next couple of weeks. But I will tell you that I hope I gave you enough data to suggest that it's not the wild, wild west out there. We are working hard. We are working hard. And this misnomer that Seattle is dying or suffering, you weren't with us yesterday. Right now, on this beautiful June 12th day, there's people that continue to love this Seattle and like where we're heading. These problems were not started just 2 weeks ago. They're not going to be solved in 2 weeks. I hope everyone understands that. We are dealing with hundreds of years of institutional discrimination. We're talking about lives that continue to be traumatized in this city and in this country. So if you want something in the next 2 weeks, then I didn't sign up to fix it in the next 2 weeks. I signed up to find sustainable solutions to create a one Seattle model where everyone is safe and everyone is healthy, and that is the trajectory that we're on. We're going to close it down, Jamie.
Time for two more questions.
2 more questions.
AJ, I saw.
Yes, sir.
What I'm hearing you say, as of right now, what this new ordinance will look like is unknown. You can tell us that police will have clarity on what it looks like when everybody talks. But when we all go to court, we have to say what it looks like right now. Is that fair?
Are you saying what the ordinance looks like or what our officers are doing?
Yeah.
What our officers are doing?
When this ordinance passes, how you define when
Sure.
someone can make an arrest. It will be
Yeah.
clear then.
Yeah.
Because someone asked.
So let me answer your question. The officers can make an arrest for unlawful drug use right now. They are authorized. The King County Prosecutor's Office declined. They're saying they don't have the resources to prosecute. But let me make it clear if I haven't already. I believe in my heart the people that are using drugs, many of them are sick. They are unhealthy. We're not going to go out and fill our jails with sick people. So we are continuing in our investment strategy on groups like you see standing with me right now. We'll continue with our crisis unit. We'll continue with our Medic 1, Medic 2 system. We'll continue with our reach out system, which is based on Model 1 and Model 2 in terms of dealing with our youth that are traumatized. We'll continue with our investment strategy, which are yielding results. I will continue meeting with the officers to give them the clarity that they need on how to deal with someone. Our executive order will count to see what we're dealing with. None of you could tell me right now, I think with a level of accuracy, on exactly what the problem is. We have not quantified it. No mayor has quantified it. We will quantify it. So it's not this nebulous concept of how many people are using drugs. We will know exactly what the data produced. All of our solutions under my administration are sustainable. So we're looking at for sustainable outcomes.
So officers will arrest people using drugs that are dangerous to you. That's the goal. That's what you said.
Well, I said what I said. That's what you said. I'm not sure you're saying it right. I don't know how to. I mean, it's been recorded. You go back and look at the record. I've said a lot for the last 45 minutes. So if that's what you heard, you didn't say it the right way or something. I don't know what that was about. Okay.
All right, Jonathan, last question.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Mayor, just lastly, you got really emotional when you talked about living through the war on drugs. The activists accused Ann Davidson's drug bill of perpetuating the war on drugs. Do you agree with that assessment?
No. No, I don't think that the attempt there was to perpetuate the war on drugs. I think the attempt there was to reconcile state law with city law, to give her office the ability to use that tool as a means to get people health and treatment. And quite candidly, under my administration as the executive of this city, we're not going to reinstitute the war on drugs. So I don't believe that was the intent. All right. Thank you for being here. I hope I'm quoted accurately. And everyone, let's make it a great day because we're getting ready to get to work. Thank you very much.
Great job.